The studio was alive before a single word was spoken. The audience buzzed with excitement, voices overlapping. It felt energetic, almost festive. But beneath the noise, everyone in the room knew today wasn't going to follow the script. There was a tension in the air, a sense that something unscripted was coming, and that whatever happened on this stage tonight would not end politely when the lights went out. Then Donald Trump leaned forward, elbows wide, shoulders squared, and took the space like it belonged to him. He didn't look at the moderator. He didn't ask for permission. He stared straight across the stage, eyes locked on Barack Obama, with that familiar expression that said he wasn't here to discuss. He was here to dominate. Trump smiled, but it wasn't friendly. It was sharp, almost mocking. "You want a real debate?" he said, tapping the mic as if to make sure everyone was listening. No scripts, no handlers whispering in your ear, no teleprompters, just you and me, right now. A low wave of noise moved through the audience, whispers, nervous laughter. Trump pressed on, sensing blood. "Let's see how calm you are when you can't hide behind speeches. Let's see what you've really got." Cameras zoomed in. Producers leaned forward. Everyone knew this had just crossed a line. Trump leaned back in his chair, chin up, scanning the crowd like he'd already won. His body language screamed confidence, but his eyes kept flicking back to Obama, waiting. He expected pushback, maybe a dodge, maybe a long, careful answer. Instead, Obama stayed still. He didn't look to the moderator. He didn't adjust his jacket. He didn't even blink right away. He let the moment breathe, and that silence did something Trump hadn't planned for. It slowed the room down and pulled the attention away from him. Obama finally lifted his eyes and met Trump's stare head-on. His voice was calm, almost casual, but there was steel underneath it. "You keep talking about no scripts," he said, "but you've been running the same routine for years." A few murmurs cut through the crowd. Obama didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "If we're doing this," he continued, "let's do it honestly. No performance, no crowd work, just the facts." Trump's smile tightened. The jab was clean, and it landed. Trump shifted in his seat, clearly irritated. "Honesty?" he shot back. "Coming from you? You wrote the book on polished answers." He shook his head, scoffing. "You talk smooth, but the country paid the price." Obama didn't flinch. He didn't interrupt. He waited for Trump to finish, then leaned forward just slightly. "The difference," he said evenly, "is I didn't confuse volume with strength." The audience reacted louder this time, and Trump's jaw clenched. Trump looked uncomfortable, not angry, cornered. He had tried to turn this into a spectacle, a pressure move meant to rattle his opponent. Instead, Obama had met the challenge without heat, without fear, and without playing Trump's game. The moderator's voice barely faded before Donald Trump surged forward, cutting the air like he was reclaiming territory. He leaned over the table, shoulders wide, chin lifted, speaking with the certainty of a man delivering a verdict, not an answer. "Nobody fought harder for America than I did," he said. "I brought jobs back. I rebuilt our military. I told our enemies we weren't weak anymore." He paused just long enough to let the words land, then glanced toward the crowd with a knowing grin. "While career politicians were busy talking, I was winning." He kept stacking the claims, faster now, louder, each sentence sharpened to provoke. "I fought the media when they lied. I fought the swamp when they tried to block me. I fought foreign leaders who laughed at us before I showed up." His eyes slid toward Barack Obama, lingering there. "Some people on this stage made a living out of speeches," Trump added, voice dripping with contempt. "I made a living out of results." A ripple of applause broke out, uneven but audible, and Trump drank it in, nodding as if the room owed him that reaction. Trump wasn't done. He leaned back, crossed one ankle over the other, and shook his head slowly. "You want to talk about fighting?" he said. "I took punches every single day and kept standing. Investigations, smears, fake stories. Most people would have folded." He tapped the table once for emphasis. "I didn't. That's fighting for America." He finished with a smug half-smile, like he'd closed the case and was waiting for the gavel. Obama didn't move right away. He let the claps fade, let the noise drain out of the room. When he finally leaned in, it wasn't aggressive. It was deliberate. His voice came out steady, almost conversational, which somehow made it cut deeper. "You talk about fighting," he said, eyes level, "but fighting for people isn't the same as fighting for applause." The room quieted in a way that felt physical, like someone had pulled the air out. Obama continued, not rushing, choosing each word carefully. "You can fight the press, you can fight your critics, you can even fight your own shadow." He tilted his head slightly. "But that's not the same as fighting for the families who don't get a microphone." Trump scoffed, muttering, "Oh, please," and rolled his eyes. Obama didn't look at him. "Real fighting," he went on, "is showing up when there's nothing to gain. When the cameras aren't there. When the answer costs you politically, but it's still the right one." Trump leaned forward, clearly irritated. "That's easy to say when you're good at sounding nice," he shot back. "You had 8 years to fix things." Obama finally turned his gaze toward him. "And you had 4 years to prove that noise equals leadership," he replied calmly. "It doesn't." A sharp murmur ran through the audience. Trump opened his mouth, then closed it, searching for the rhythm he'd lost. Obama pressed on, voice still controlled but firmer now. "If the measure of fighting is how loud you shout, then yes, you win that contest," he said. "But if it's about who carries the consequences when the cheering stops, who owns the outcomes, not the headlines, that's a different fight entirely." Trump shifted in his chair, jaw tight, fingers drumming once on the table before stopping himself. The moderator didn't soften his voice this time. He read the question slowly, carefully, like he knew it was dangerous. Integrity under pressure. Real consequences. Before the last word fully landed, Trump let out a short, bitter laugh and leaned back in his chair. "Pressure?" he said. "You want to talk about pressure?" He shook his head, lips tight. "I lived under more pressure than anyone in modern politics." His voice rose. "Investigations. Witch hunts. Endless fake scandals designed to break me." He jabbed a finger toward the table. "They came after my family, my business, my name. Total scams." Trump leaned forward again, eyes sharp, feeding off his own anger. "Most people would have quit," he said. "They would have apologized for things they didn't do. I didn't. I stood my ground." He smirked and glanced sideways. "Some people just write speeches, collect applause, and walk away clean." The jab hung in the air. "I stayed in the fire while they hid behind words." A few uneasy chuckles rippled through the crowd, but the energy felt thinner now, more strained. He wasn't done. "Integrity means not backing down when the entire system is trying to crush you," Trump said, voice louder, faster. "I could have played nice. I could have gone along to get along. I didn't." He leaned back again, arms spreading slightly, daring anyone to challenge that version of himself. That's strength. That's integrity. He nodded once, convinced he'd framed himself as the victim hero, the man who survived the storm. Obama didn't interrupt. He didn't react. He waited until the noise settled, until Trump's words stopped echoing. Then he leaned in, slow and deliberate. His voice was calm, almost restrained, which made people lean forward without realizing it. "Pressure," he said, "isn't being criticized." The room quieted immediately. Pressure is making decisions when there's no applause waiting on the other side. Obama paused, then began telling a story, not as a speech, but as a memory. A crisis late at night. Conflicting intelligence. Advisors split. Lives potentially on the line. "I remember sitting alone after everyone left," he said, eyes focused somewhere distant. "Knowing that if I acted too fast, innocent people could die. And if I waited too long, the same thing could happen." His voice tightened just enough to feel real. "There's no crowd for that moment. No rally, no chance, just responsibility." Trump scoffed quietly, shaking his head. Obama continued anyway. "I made decisions that didn't poll well," he said. "Decisions that hurt politically. Decisions I knew I'd be blamed for." He finally turned his gaze toward Trump. "Integrity isn't proving you're right," he said firmly. "It's proving you're responsible when you're wrong." The words hit like a blunt object. Trump opened his mouth to jump in, then hesitated. For the first time, the timing was off. The silence that followed wasn't dramatic. It was uncomfortable. Trump shifted in his seat, adjusting his jacket, tapping the table once before stopping himself. The confidence was still there, but it had a hairline fracture running through it now. Obama leaned back, expression steady, saying nothing more. The energy dropped into something heavier, more controlled, and Trump felt it slipping. He jumped back in quickly, talking faster now, cutting off the moderator mid-sentence, stacking words before anyone could slow him down. "Let's get real," he said, waving a hand. "We're not talking about theory here. We're talking about running a country. Borders, trade, enemies, power." He leaned forward again, voice louder than it needed to be. "This isn't a classroom discussion. This is about national survival." Trump kept pressing, interrupting, whenever the conversation drifted toward personal accountability. "You can't run America with hesitation," he said sharply. "You need confidence. You need strength. You need someone who's willing to take hits and keep moving." He spoke over the moderator, over the room, like speed alone could pull the spotlight back to him. But the rhythm was off. The words landed, yet they didn't settle. People weren't reacting the way they had earlier. They were listening, but with narrowed eyes now. Obama didn't chase him. He didn't argue point by point or rise to the volume. He sat still, hands folded, letting Trump burn through his momentum. When Trump finally paused to breathe, Obama leaned slightly toward the microphone. His voice was low and steady, almost disarming. "Confidence matters," he said, "but confidence without reflection is just impulse." Trump started to cut in again, but Obama lifted one finger calmly and finished his thought. "And impulse always sends someone else the bill." Then he asked it. Just one question. No speech, no build-up. "Who pays the price when your confidence is wrong?" The words hung in the air longer than anything shouted earlier. Trump froze for half a second, eyes flicking toward the audience, then back to Obama. The room went quiet, not with shock, but with weight. Something subtle but dangerous happened in the room. The audience was still listening, but the reactions were gone. No laughs at the usual lines. No automatic claps to cue the next moment. When Trump tossed out a familiar jab, it landed flat, echoing for a second too long before dying out. Cameras caught him frowning, lips pressed tight, reaching for his water glass more than once, buying time he never used to need. He glanced around the room, searching for the energy that had always carried him, and for the first time, it wasn't there. Trump tried again, dropping another sharp line, then another, but the rhythm was broken. People weren't leaning forward for the punchlines anymore. They were watching his face, his pauses, the small tells he couldn't hide. The crowd hadn't turned hostile. That was worse. They had gone quiet in the way people do when they're no longer being entertained, when they're weighing something instead of reacting to it. Obama didn't press the advantage with an attack. He didn't need to. He spoke calmly, almost softly, about responsibility and consequences, about how policies don't live on paper but in real homes, real jobs, real lives. He talked about the people affected after the cameras leave, after the speeches end, after the slogans stop working. No accusations, no insults. Just the steady reminder that leadership isn't measured by applause, but by who carries the weight when decisions go wrong. The moderator barely finished reading the question before Trump surged forward again, voice louder, sharper, like he was trying to punch through the silence that had settled over the room. "Let's stop pretending," he said, pointing toward the audience. "Working-class families were better off when I was in charge. Period." He spoke fast, stacking claims without pause. Gas was cheaper. Jobs were up. The world respected us. He shook his head and scoffed. "They don't need lectures. They need winners." The line was meant to draw cheers, but it landed unevenly, followed by a few scattered claps that faded almost immediately. Trump kept pushing, louder now, frustration leaking through the confidence. "People are tired of politicians explaining their pain to them," he said. "They want someone who can win deals, break the system, force results." He smirked, eyes flashing toward Obama. "Not someone who talks pretty and leaves towns worse off than before." He leaned back, arms loose, waiting for the crowd to rise. It didn't. The quiet stretched longer than he expected, and his jaw tightened as he reached for his water, taking a quick sip before jumping back in. "I've done it before," he said quickly, "and I'll do it again." Obama didn't react right away. He let Trump's words burn themselves out. When he finally leaned toward the microphone, his voice was calm, steady, and unmistakably firm. "You're right about one thing," he said. "People are tired." Trump opened his mouth to interrupt, but Obama kept going without raising his tone. "They're tired of being told they're winning when their lives don't feel like it." The room stilled again. Obama spoke about real people, not policies. Parents working double shifts, still behind on rent, families choosing between medicine and groceries, towns promised revival that never came. No statistics, no slogans, just reality. Trump tried to cut in, shaking his head. "That's not on me," he muttered louder now. Obama didn't look at him. "They don't live in sound bites," he said. "They live with consequences." Trump leaned forward, attempting to reclaim the floor. But Obama lifted his gaze just enough to hold the room. "If you only hear people when they clap," he said evenly, "you've already stopped leading." The sentence hung in the air like a verdict. Trump opened his mouth again, ready to fire back, then stopped. The timing was gone. The crowd wasn't reacting, wasn't booing or cheering, just watching. Obama leaned back, saying nothing more. He didn't need to. The attack had failed, not because it was weak, but because it had missed the point. Trump jumped back in, but the rhythm was gone. He started fast, then stumbled, restarting his own sentences like he was searching for a handle that wasn't there anymore. "Look, people know me," he said, voice tightening. "They know I deliver. You don't run a country by overthinking everything." He waited for a laugh, a cheer, some familiar cue. Nothing. He tried again, sharper this time. "You can't lead by second-guessing yourself every 5 minutes." The words landed flat, and he knew it. His jaw clenched. He cleared his throat, glanced at the moderator, then back to the crowd, as if asking them to rescue the moment. He pushed harder, but it only made the cracks louder. "I made tough calls," he said, nodding to himself. "Very tough calls. People don't appreciate how hard that is." He scoffed, shaking his head. "It's easy to criticize from the sidelines." Someone coughed in the audience. A camera zoomed in as he reached for his water, took a sip, then another, buying time he never used to need. "You can talk ideals all night," he snapped, voice rising again, "but when it's your name on the line, when it's your reputation—" He stopped mid-sentence. The punchline never came. The silence did. Obama waited until Trump's words collapsed under their own weight. Then he leaned in, slow and deliberate, his tone colder than before. "Leadership isn't about being remembered," he said. "It's about who survives your decisions." He let the sentence hang, then pressed once more, not louder, just heavier. "When confidence turns into recklessness, it's never the leader who pays first." Trump opened his mouth to cut in, then froze. No interruption, no comeback. He sat there, staring ahead, lips pressed tight, hands still. The confidence didn't fade with a bang. It cracked quietly and completely right there under the lights. The moment didn't end with a bang. It ended with silence. Trump stayed in his chair, staring ahead, jaw set, hands folded tightly together. He didn't interrupt. He didn't object. He didn't try to claw back the spotlight one last time. For a man known for always having the final word, the absence of it was louder than anything he could have said. The cameras lingered on him for a beat too long, capturing something rare. Stillness, not strategy. When it was Obama's turn, he didn't lean forward or raise his voice. He spoke calmly, almost evenly, as if the night had already passed judgment, and there was no need to argue with it. "There's a difference between performance and service," he said. "One needs applause. The other answers to history." He didn't look at Trump when he said it. He didn't have to. The line wasn't an attack. It was a closing statement, delivered without heat, without flair, and without mercy. The moderator thanked both men, his voice careful, subdued, like someone closing a courtroom session, rather than a debate. The lights dimmed slightly. The microphones went cold. No one rushed to clap. People stood slowly, quietly, gathering their things the way jurors do after a verdict sinks in. Conversations were hushed. Faces were serious. This wasn't entertainment anymore. It felt like something had been weighed and measured, and the weight had stayed behind. Trump rose last, expression tight, saying nothing to anyone as he left the stage. Obama nodded once to the moderator and walked off without pause. Outside the room, the noise would return. Headlines, arguments spin. But inside, the moment was finished. One challenge had been issued, one confidence had cracked. And long after the lights went out, a single thought lingered in the air, unresolved and unavoidable. He challenged him, and never recovered. If you stayed to the end, you didn't just watch a debate, you watched a moment where confidence met consequence. If this confrontation made you pause, question, or see leadership differently, that's the conversation worth continuing. Share your take in the comments because moments like this don't end when the lights go out. They live on in how we judge power, truth, and accountability. And if you want more stories where words don't just clash but reveal, make sure you're here for the next one.